Hey everybody, it's Patrick. It's Tuesday, and on Tuesdays I talk about long hair. Today I'm continuing my series on things that are a little bit more basic about hair care. I'm covering a topic that has been touched upon a couple times in other videos of mine, but I haven't gone into great detail about it, so today I thought I'd do that. And that's drying your hair. Now, one of the things that I hear over and over again on these long hair channels from guys like myself, and I am guilty of this as well, is that you should never ever use heat drying on your hair. For the most part, when we're talking about growing out your hair, so many of the guys who are online and so many of the articles that you see say just let your hair air dry, just use a towel if you need to use anything at all, and if you use heat drying you're going to dry out your hair. There is no hope, forget it, don't let a hair dryer touch your hair at all, air drying is best. Now, while there are a lot of risks associated with air drying your hair, there are certainly ways to combat this, and there have been studies that show that towel drying and air drying can have just as many risks when you're talking about drying your hair as using hair dryers or using heat to dry your hair. It's all about the technique either way. If you're going to be using a hair dryer, you're going to want to use certain techniques and take certain precautions. Same with using towels or letting your hair air dry. You're going to want to make sure that what you're doing is not making your hair more at risk or actually damaging your hair just in the process of drying it. First of all, let's go over drying with a hair dryer. Now that's something that I don't personally do. My hair is exceptionally dry, so I tend to avoid heat drying or heat styling altogether. But if you are going to be using a hair dryer, make sure that one, you're using it on a lower setting. If you use your hair dryer on a higher setting, it's definitely going to give you a faster drying time. But what that also does is it makes your hair more at risk of drying out, more at risk of damage, and more at risk of just being bad for your scalp as well. The next thing that you're going to want to make sure that you're doing is keeping your hair dryer at a distance that works for the hair dryer. Remember that the heating element inside of your dryer is very much like the heating element inside of an electric oven, inside of a toaster, those sorts of things. You wouldn't put that very close to your hair, but when you're talking about your hair dryer, a lot of people will take their brush and just push their hair dryer right up against their hair to dry it out. That certainly does dry it faster. You can get your hair to be straighter that way, but it also means that you are really risking damaging your hair. So read the instructions on your hair dryer. Make sure that you are keeping it at an appropriate distance and keep it on a lower setting. Remember that speed and convenience are certainly things that are helpful with your hair dryer, but there are a lot of risks involved. However, there are also risks involved with letting your hair air dry, and those are the things that I'm going to cover for the most part in this video. Now, when we have shorter hair, we're very used to taking just your regular towel, whatever you happen to use for the rest of your body, just take a regular old bath towel, and a lot of people, when they're drying their hair when it's shorter, will just put it on top of their hair and then just rub it vigorously so that they can dry it as quickly as possible. You've got a lot of surface area on your towel that is going to be touching a lot of the surface area of your hair, and as you move it back and forth, it picks up a lot more water. You don't necessarily notice the damage or the frizziness or the dryness that this puts into your hair because you have shorter hair, so you can just slick it down, you can comb it, you can brush it, and it'll fall right back into place. As your hair gets longer though, when you are drying your hair, you're going to want to take a lot more care, especially with your towel. Now, when you're approaching your hair with your towel, you're going to want to think of this as more of a pressing and squeezing process more than a rubbing process. You don't want to rub the water out of your hair. What you want to do is, whether on top of your head where you can just press down on top of your scalp, just push that down so that the water gets into your hair. Or if you are going on the sides, you're going to want to do more of a squeeze. So you can just squeeze the water directly into the towel. It doesn't seem like it's working as quickly, but then again, you don't want to break the strands of your hair, which are very delicate when they are wet. Your hair is much more apt to breakage when it has the more elasticity because it is wetter and it will stretch out and then break. Another thing that you'll want to take note of is that you could wrap your hair up in a towel, or whatever you choose to wrap your head up in. What this does is it allows the water from your hair to absorb into the towel. You can also use a soft cotton t-shirt. That tends to work very well for drying your hair, and it can take that water out of your hair and transfer it to the dry towel, and that can take a little bit longer. So after you've come out of the shower and you've washed your hair, you can wrap the towel around your head and then go about the rest of your morning routine, and then take the towel off, and a lot more water will have absorbed into the towel. Remember that any of these processes are at risk of damaging your hair, so make sure that you use a good conditioner before you're drying your hair, because while a towel will get rid of the water, it will also pull a lot of the conditioner and a lot of the product out of your hair. So you may want to add a little bit of extra before you exit your shower, or add a little bit extra while you're doing your conditioning routine, because some of that's going to wind up right on your towel. You can also use a leave-in conditioner after you've finished your drying routine, or after you have finished your toweling routine, because your hair will then have to air dry from damp to fully dry. If you put in a leave-in conditioner, it can get absorbed by your hair during the drying process as well. Now remember, if you are air drying your hair, the same rules apply to air drying hair as it does to wet hair, which means you probably don't want to use a brush that is not designed for wet hair. There are detangling brushes and wet brushes that work very well for wet and for damp hair. And if you're going to be using a comb, make sure that you use a wide tooth comb, an extra wide tooth comb, so that it doesn't catch, snag, and break your hair while you are drying it. You'll also want to make sure that you take note of the elements. If it is freezing outside and you go outside with wet hair, you may break your hair because it will get cold, it will freeze, it will become fragile, and you can break your hair as you're putting on hats, taking off hats, as it's getting caught within your clothes. If it's very warm outside, you are basically baking your wet hair the same way that you would if you had your hairdryer going. So if it's very warm and breezy outside, just take note, you may want to add a little bit of sunscreen or a little bit of extra conditioner to your hair. One of the things that I do want to mention is that you may want to invest in a microfiber towel. Now, a microfiber towel has a much smoother surface than your regular bath towel. A lot of times we tend to think of comfort when we should be thinking of absorbency. When you are talking about towels, a very comfortable towel would be a big fluffy bath towel. However, that doesn't really work very well when you're talking about trying to dry something with a lot of surface area like your hair. Your hair has a lot of surface area that moves around quite a bit, and so while a big fluffy towel might get the water off of your skin a lot more quickly, a microfiber towel will work better because it moves more smoothly through your hair and it absorbs a lot more. Now, I just recently invested in this microfiber towel. I bought it off of Amazon. It is by a company called Comfort. I will say that this works really tremendously well for me. I was using a very fine beach towel, basically, that didn't have a lot of nap to it, and I thought that that would work just as well as a microfiber towel. But in researching this episode, I thought, well, why not look into microfiber towels? This was on Amazon, and I figured I would pick it up. It's great. I can absolutely recommend it. It does dry my hair a lot quicker than my regular bath towel. The only thing that I don't really appreciate too much about this is the size. Now, it is certainly nice and long. It's about as long as your basic bath towel, as you can see, very long, but it's not very wide. And for someone who has hair as long as I do, I find it difficult when I'm wrapping it up to wrap up all of my hair. Now, this is not something that is unique to DuraComfort. All of them seem to be quite long, but a little bit more narrow than your basic bath towel, and I don't necessarily know why that is, other than that you need a little bit less material usually to sop up more of the water, but I like to wrap this around my head a lot. The one thing I will say about this, as well as the absorbency and the price, it was very reasonably priced, is that it's also extremely light. So if you wrap up your head with this, you're not going to feel this big heavy weight other than your hair of the towel along with that. So if you're interested in getting a microfiber towel, I would say any of them are probably going to do very well, but if you're looking for a particular brand, I just picked this up, this DuraComfort towel, and I'm very happy with it. So if DuraComfort is watching, I really do appreciate your product, and thank you so much for your excellent shipping and for taking care of the customer service side of it. I got a little email from you guys when you sent out the product, and I appreciate that as well. I'm here every Tuesday talking about long hair. If you haven't yet, you can subscribe by hitting the subscribe button down below. There's a little bell next to it. If you want notifications of when I've posted a new video, you can just press on that and it will give you notifications every time I post. A whole bunch of other stuff on this channel as well. Some stuff like recipes that you might be interested in and some weirdness. So very much thank you for joining me this time, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.